Magda had always been a misfit, the kind that lingered at the edge of a crowd, watching but never quite belonging. In Axgard, her homeland, this made her more than a curiosity. It made her an anomaly. Dwarves were supposed to be steadfast, anchored by tradition, roots dug deep into the ancient stone of their mountains. But Magda, she was different. She was the wind, restless and unpredictable, blowing through the cracks in the mountains, unsettling the dust of centuries. It was the fight with her family that finally broke her. The words were sharp as blades, cutting through the last ties that bound her to that place. She left Axgard in a fury, a storm of emotion that left her breathless and disoriented. The mountains that had once felt so familiar, so comforting in their solid presence, now loomed like silent judges. They watched her leave, impassive, as she stepped into the unknown, vowing never to return. For a while, Magda wandered alone. The vast, cold expanse of Kaldheim spread out before her, endless and indifferent. She felt small in that vastness, a single point of warmth in a world of ice and stone. But she was not afraid. Fear was something she had left behind in Axgard, along with the expectations and the traditions that had suffocated her. Out here, in the wild, she could be whoever she wanted to be, or so she told herself. It was during these wanderings that she encountered others like her, dwarves who had also turned their backs on the rigid norms of their society. They were outcasts, misfits, exiles. They had no place in the orderly world they had left behind, and so they had created their own place, a world of their own making. It was a world of chaos, of looting and plundering, a world where the rules were made by the strongest, the boldest. Magda thrived in this world. She was a natural leader, her fiery spirit drawing others to her like moths to a flame. Together, they formed a band of outlaws, a motley crew that roamed the realms, leaving chaos in their wake. But even in this life of constant motion, Magda could not escape the nagging feeling of emptiness that gnawed at her. It was a hollow place inside her, a void that no amount of gold or loot could fill. It was as if she had left something behind in Axgard, something essential, something she could not name. But she pushed the feeling away, burying it deep inside her, along with the memories of her past. She had chosen this life, and she would live it to the fullest. It was on one of their raids that they found the dragon eggs. The raid itself had been unremarkable. Just another village, just another hall. But then, in the ruins of a burnt-out temple, they found the eggs. They were huge, each one as big as a dwarf, smooth and hard as stone, their surfaces glowing with a faint inner light. Magda felt a strange pull towards them, an inexplicable urge to protect them. It was as if something deep inside her recognized the potential in those eggs, the power that lay dormant within them. And so, against the advice of her crew, she ordered them to take the eggs with them. The journey back was long and arduous. The eggs were heavy, unwieldy, and their strange warmth seemed to sap the strength of those who carried them. But Magda was relentless. She drove her crew on, refusing to leave the eggs behind, refusing to abandon the potential they represented. She could feel something stirring inside the eggs, something alive, something powerful. It was as if the eggs were calling to her, speaking to her in a language she could not understand but felt in her bones. Back at their camp, Magda set about caring for the eggs with a single-minded determination. She built a nest for them, a cradle of stone and earth, and spent hours tending to them, keeping them warm, whispering to them in the dead of night. Her crew watched her with growing unease. They had seen their leader driven before, but this was different. There was a madness in her eyes, a wildness that frightened them, but none dared to challenge her. Magda had become something more than just a leader. She had become a force of nature, and they followed her, even as they feared her. As the days turned into weeks, the eggs began to change. The faint glow that had been visible on their surfaces grew stronger, pulsing with an inner fire. Magda could feel the creatures inside them growing, could sense their hunger, their need to break free. She began to dream of them, vivid, terrifying dreams in which the dragons hatched, their scales gleaming like molten metal, their eyes burning with an ancient, unknowable intelligence. In her dreams, the dragons spoke to her, their voices low and resonant, echoing in the depths of her mind. They promised her power, dominance, and she awoke each morning with a strange, fierce determination. But with the dreams came the doubts. What if she was wrong? What if these creatures were not the allies she hoped for, but something darker, something more dangerous? The thought gnawed at her, but she pushed it aside. She'd come too far to turn back now. The dragons were her destiny, her legacy. With them she would carve out a place in the world, a place where she belonged, a place where she was no longer an outcast, but a queen. Then came the day when the first egg cracked. It happened in the dead of night, a sharp, sudden sound that woke Magda from her sleep. She sat up, her heart pounding, and saw the egg split open, a thin line of light slicing through its surface. For a moment everything was still, and then, with a shuddering roar, the dragon emerged. It was small, smaller than she had imagined, its scales still soft, its wings folded awkwardly against its sides. But its eyes were sharp, burning with a fierce intelligence, and when it looked at her, Magda felt a jolt of recognition. This was her creature, her creation, and in its eyes she saw her own reflection, twisted and strange. The dragon spread its wings, stretching them wide, and Magda felt a surge of triumph. This was her moment, the culmination of everything she had fought for, everything she had sacrificed. The dragon let out a low, rumbling growl, and the other eggs began to crack one by one. Soon the air was filled with the sound of breaking shells, of dragons emerging into the world, their scales glittering in the dim light. But as the dragons hatched, a sense of unease crept over Magda. The dragons were hers, but they were also something else, something ancient and wild, something she could not control. She had brought them into the world, but now they were free to follow their own instincts, their own desires. And as she looked into their eyes, she saw something that terrified her, a cold, calculating intelligence, a hunger that went beyond mere survival. These were not the creatures she had imagined. They were something far more dangerous, something she could not tame.